Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining my session. They didn't tell me it's a big crowd, so I'm a bit nervous, but haven't done this for a long time. But I'm doing it for PwC. Hopefully, they'll give me a discount on next collaboration. Okay, so today I'm going to talk a bit about identity from a risk perspective. Clearly this is one of the hottest subjects that I think most IT professionals or even non-IT professionals been talking about, regulators and industry participants, right? So let's go through the slides. Okay, so what is identity, right? It's basically a set of measurable characteristics that allows a computer or a device to identify an external entity such as a human or machines or another computer. So what it means is that the identity itself includes personal information, so your ID, your BOD, your birthday, your email address, and other digital credentials, as well as biometric data. I think previously in the panel, they also discuss biometric data, right? So I'll talk about that a little bit later on. So what identity does in cybersecurity? So obviously, the main purpose is to authenticate a user identity, meaning something the user knows, your username, your password, your key question in case you forget your password, or memorable questions, something the user has, or it can be a physical or a software-based sort of tokens give you a set of number digits for you to log in within a certain period of time to the authorized users, and also something the user is, right? Your face, your fingerprint, your voice. So the authorization, once you are being authenticated, the next, obviously, the progress would be authorizing to the action, right? So it determines why you need to have access to a certain data or actions, and your identity allows you to have the access level, right? Here I just sort of put on some identity-related incidents took place in the past. Just for reference, really. I mean, one is was to deal with ransomware, or one's with misconfiguration, and one with the data leakage. Okay, so challenge. What kind of challenge are we sort of facing, right? Supply chain attack, firstly. For example, many businesses, as you know, right, they're adopting more commercial or open source software system from vendors, especially if you are already embarking on your journey with generative AI. So that includes hardware, software, firmware, right? Also the interconnected network of organizations between people, processes, and technologies involved in the production and delivery of a service or a product. That again, that interconnectivity between people doing the work, doing the jobs, their roles and responsibilities also create the possibility or risk of cyber attack. Right? I mean, supply chain attack, and also. More importantly, companies often share sensitive information across systems, right? So your system, your onboarding system, for example, your financial services, you have your customer EKYC, your name screening system, your transaction monitoring system, and your call monitoring system, right? Like your customer service call center, what have you, right? Now the potential supply risk, right? Obviously, would be unauthorized access. Data breach, and also unavailability of service. So because your service is subject to the availability and also the quality of service provided by your supply chain provider, you also need to ensure that these incidents will be reported to you in a timely fashion. And also, for example, they will be able to provide you with a root cause analysis in a very sort of timely fashion, so that you know exactly what's happening and what sort of the remedial actions being taken, right? So also the other challenge is also, I think we all talk about the rise of AI in identity-based attack So obviously it's driven by fast advancement of AI technology, all the LLM, large language models. They're attached to different cloud solutions. They're doing different things, like it could be like voice to text, voice to audio, voice to video, the different types of AI technology. And also, I think hackers are becoming, or actors are becoming more and more sophisticated. So they're also deploying AI-powered malware and phishing to increase the frequency and also the effectiveness of their hacks, right? Deepfake, I think we also, the previous panel talked about, create fake identities and harvest our credentials, right? So next step, what we can do, right, as to counter these challenges, we should implement zero trust principles. Something like, like we shouldn't, basically don't trust anybody, don't trust any system, don't trust any devices. We try to make sure that, the access is always time sensitive. We don't use the never expire sort of setting in setting out our privileged accounts, the management of the privileged accounts, and also limit access on need-to-know basis, right? So basically, depending on your job functions. For example, a developer shouldn't have access to the configuration of the production environment. I mean, that's basically a toxic combination to actually have both accesses, right, to the testing environment and also the production environment. And okay, another challenge obviously originated from cloud sort of intrusion. So according to CrowdStrike, the report 2024, 75% increase in cloud intrusion back in 2023. So we're probably expecting more intrusion in 2024. CrowdStrike is an example, right? So organization may shift from deployment of on-prem to cloud or hybrid models. Now, I think this trend is inevitable. You cannot really change it. As I mentioned earlier, as companies, organizations are adopting more generative AI to do their jobs, to do their processes and help out, streamline process, streamline their output, right? Because each AI solution or application is actually attached to a cloud solution. So may it be AWS, GCP, or Microsoft, right? So you do have to adopt the hybrid models or the multi-cloud models. Now, the accelerated cloud projects often result in overlooking security or considerations leading to misconfigurations. So I think this is, again, in most organizations, there's always a conflict between your infrastructure team and your security team, because they're basically sharing the same budget, right? So infrastructure team would want to build something or build their infrastructure or systems, application in a more sort of timely fashion. At the same time, because of limited resources, they may have to compromise or make some compromise in terms of security considerations, right? But then security is actually run by another team. So they're actually always fighting for resources, for time. So that, again, could lead to some deficiency and resulting in some, perhaps some misconfigurations, right? Now, attackers exploit these weaknesses in cloud environments, especially in hybrid setup. The reason why we say that there's their weaknesses because imagine your hybrid setup is you have on-prem server, at the same time you have your cloud environment. In your BAU sort of environment, your operations, you are probably different systems, as I mentioned earlier, they're sharing different data. It could be customer data, it could be proprietary data, or any sort of data that is very important to the operation of a company. So now you have to sort of maintain that linkage, right? That linkage between your on-prem and your cloud. And that, again, would create some vulnerability, right? During the data in transit, data at rest. So that is, give rise to possible intrusion, right? Now, next step, so what do we do, right? What do we counter these challenges? Obviously, we adopt cloud-native application protection platform. So what I say by saying a cloud-native application, try not to create your own protection layer, right? If you're using, for example, Google, use their control, right? If you're using Amazon, use their control, right? Use their configuration. Don't try to create your sort of ad hoc, a separate layer, because you're going to miss something, right? So that's what it means by using a cloud-native application. Now, also, I think a lot of people talk about SOAR, SOAR, security orchestration, automation, and also response, right? So this is also important because it's kind of, basically what it does is it helps you to link up all your disparate systems, processes, and make it more holistic. So when you do incident response, you can actually do it more quickly, more efficiently, and more timely, right? And also DevSecOps, again, whatever development or coding you're doing, you always make sure that your security is always being taken into consideration. When you write something, you do some coding, you want to make sure that who is actually looking at storing the security key, make sure that it's being, and each process being tested at the same time after each modification is being done or a change of configuration, to make sure that you're not losing sort of losing track of the security, right? When you're doing something, you're creating some new coding. So mitigation for identity risk, right? I think many of you heard about or know about PAM, IAM, the difference of the two. So IAM is probably the more sort of conventional way to mitigate identity risk. So it defines for example, it defines employees' roles and scopes, so they can do their job more efficiently. I would think that's more high level. More high-level governance structure, and also manages user within an organization from a productivity standpoint, right? So you're tracking progress of your development and so on and so forth, right? So PAM, on the other hand, is more, I would say, it's more advanced version of the IAM. So here I break down the two techniques, right? So IAM, control of authentication, authorization for resource access, single sign-on, MFA, user provisioning. So you need to, in order to have access, you need to have provision. Your access has to be provisioned, granted by someone who actually has more authority than you, right? Now, for PAM, the Privileged Access Management integration, well, I'm not allowed to mention any vendors who are participating in this event. So. But this is something that we use. Like I said, it's a more advanced version because it follows the principle of least privilege. Now granting minimal access on a need-to-know basis, or on a needed basis. Just-in-time access, meaning they give you a certain period of time to do your development, and after that time, you don't have the access anymore, right? So you actually you only have the access for a certain period of time. And then session monitoring is active. Ongoing monitoring, everything that's being done, all the scripts being written, it's all being monitored, right? Like who's logs in, who logs out, doing what, writing what scripts, doing what testing, all being monitored, right? And last but not least, right, is the credential vault, right? So you have a central repository to keeping all, as I mentioned earlier, all the security keys, all the credential is being stored in a single repository. Okay, also mitigations for identity risk control, right? So obviously, organizations like us, a telco, a technology company, we have a lot of data, right? So obviously, excessive data exposure and overprivileged user are the two sort of main points, right? So control, least privilege, as I mentioned, segregation of duties, roles and responsibility, collect only necessary data on a need-to-know basis, and then monitor activities to detect unusual and no action. This is to do with your SOC. You need to monitor the different sort of, you're getting different alerts. You need to authenticate the alerts to make sure that, your system or your activities are you're not picking up any abnormal or malicious activities. Conduct periodic reviews on user access rights and permissions. You should do that once a year, that's the least, to make sure that you have a list of inventory list of all your access rights and permissions. And also, that will also give you the understanding of where your data being resided, right? And what system and what kind of data, whether or not they are being risk-rated, confidential, strictly confidential, public, and so on and so forth, right? Future trend for identity. The previous panel also mentioned about passwordless. Authentication combines something you have, like your password, your token, for signing in, and also something you are, right? So your facial recognition, your face, your fingerprint, your voice, etc. Right? Runtime of authorization permits or denies access. So mentioned like your access has to be within a certain period of time for you to log in and do your work on a real-time basis. But then again, that would be subject to your job requirements, right? And also on predefined roles. So a developer shouldn't be, like I mentioned earlier, should not be accessing the production environment, right? I mean, for configuration. And also, I think organizations increasingly automate processes and integrate complex systems, machines, and service account gaining recognition of privileged users. Now, that also applies to both the legacy system and also the non-legacy or the more sort of modern systems, because they all work together. I think all organizations, the fact is they all have legacy system, right? And that's always, the legacy system gives you the challenges, right? DevOps and service accounts are perceived as leading attack vectors, so that's based on CyberArk 2024, the study. Inadequate security controls in DevOps practices can expose vulnerabilities, right? So DevOps only focuses on development and operations. You don't have the security element to it. The security is actually being run separately. So that's why, as I mentioned in the previous slide, you have the DevSecOps, or I can't find it. Anyway, so, and also the other challenge is IoT, right, devices. It basically expands your tech service. For example, your refrigerator at home, the hacker can hack your refrigerator through remote access, and then use that as a springboard to attack your other devices, right, within your home or even in other corporations, right? So that is also quite a common sort of risk faced by many parties. So this concludes my presentation. I'll take any questions. Anyone would like to ask about identity management? So that's good, right? No question. All right, thank you.